and they need to allow you to have a nice big space too.
Does your church do that?
They started doing it last year at my insistence, and not just mine, several people's. But yes, we've started. We opened it up. I think Bethlehem or City Church had a league, and there were several teams involved in that, in recreational leagues, and so they needed other spaces, and we allowed ours.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was a good thing. It's a good thing. All right, so Shantae is going to be rude tonight, which is a shock to everybody, but the rest of us are going to participate fully. And so to all of you, welcome on this Tuesday night, the third of 4 Tuesdays that we will do together on 601. And tonight we shift gears a little bit and do the school leadership book, which has different kinds of case studies. Some of them on, how do you select the right person to lead your school, and what kinds of things can you do to help those people be more effective as leaders. And I know Dale, when he started looking for books that would fit the MELS program, you essentially are looking at profiles of leaders, right? You're looking for what things can enhance leadership skills, and what things can better enable them to do the functions that are demanded of any school leader. So that's where we are with it tonight. I thoroughly confused all of you with the teams that we ultimately went with. The teams were proportioned based on your compass points that you did. I tried to kind of have people that represented each direction on a team, and so we divided it up, or I divided it up that way, and that's how they were designed. So team 1 is going to go first, and I don't know how you divided it up, but you're going to do case 1, and then we'll go to team 2 for case 2, team 3 for case 3, and proceed accordingly. We will stay on time for the 2-hour ending at 8 o'clock. So we will get as many done as we can get done. I think some of these will go, 10 or 15 minutes. Some of them will be a little quicker. I want to make one editorial note. I've mentioned this before. I've read through all of your task 2s. I think a couple of you still have to get those submitted, but I've read what you have submitted. And again, it's a joy for Dale and I to both read your submissions, because you're such good writers and a lot of detail, and we are so thankful for that. I want to caution you again to not make the remainder of the APSL about effective PLCs, but about student learning. Your PLC's role is to identify the problem, data-driven problem, and then to develop strategies through the PLC that can enhance student learning. So the APSL, remember the last 2 letters of the acronym are student learning. And so that's what we're about. So don't get bogged down too much on the rules and the PLC, the Dufour idea of here's what a PLC needs to look like. Rather be looking at how the PLC can help drive student learning. So be sure to do that going forward. So task 3, you'll be doing your annotated bibliography that is aligned with some strategies to help with the problem. And then your action plan comes in 4. So I look forward to reading all those things as we go forward. If you have any questions with that, don't listen to what Shantae said about me not answering my phone, but if you'll text me or call or email, I would be happy to respond at any point. So that was my statement there. Let's go to group 1, team 1, and case one. And Melissa, I don't know if you are going to be the spokesperson initially or if you got somebody else assigned, but I will turn it over.
Before we start that, can I, a point of privilege, good evening, everybody. Quickly, I want to follow up on one of the things that Steve said last time we were with you last week. If you remember our case study that had the small person who applied for the job, I want to reiterate what Steve said. It wouldn't matter if she was as big as I am. That's not the point. The issue is the principal stepped outside of due process when he interviewed her and didn't let the process play out. I want to point that out because that's a big part of the second half of this course, as we're going to talk about, is due process in everything, in hiring, in discipline, in exceptional children. I mean, due process is the thread that runs through the second half of the course. And I just wanted to reiterate again, we were running late last time. Please remember that case study was not about the size of the person. That's not what it was about. That was just to confuse you. It was the principal stepped outside of the accepted procedural due process. Substantive is what we're going to do, and procedure is how we did it. His procedure was wrong. Therein lied the problem with that case study. I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry for the interruption. Please continue. Thank you.
All right, we ready?
I'm going to share our screen. All right, so we had chapter 1 first, and in this is leadership best practices. So a summary of this chapter was there was a hiring committee that consisted of teachers, parents, support personnel, and student council representatives at Post Valley, and they're looking to hire a new school head centered around the ISLLC standards. The minimum requirements of the interview process was to have a cover letter and a resume. They had 2 candidates that became finalists for this, and these people outlined their plans. So in the book, though, it did say the issue. So here's the issue is the committee decided that these 2 applicants would move on to the next phase, and that they wanted each applicant to articulate a progressive educational philosophy with a proven record of accomplishment through the knowledge of curriculum, professional development, and instructional methodology. They were to conduct a 1-hour meeting and present their philosophies, their vision for the school, initiatives to encourage a positive learning culture, plans for community involvement, and ideas to cultivate a collaborative decision-making system for the school. So what happened is Marie was our first person, and she is a very polished woman. She presented her philosophy. She presented how to improve student success, included her vision of positive teaching and learning environments, and to demand the highest expectations for students. And she said that she would do all this with support through close and tight supervision that will help attain the school goals. And she said that they would collaborate after she's decided the best plan. So that was Marie, the first candidate. The second candidate is Kate. Kate talked about her achieving school success, including student achievement, professional growth, and community preparation in the decision making. But she said, you've already interviewed me, and I've already gave you my background, my professional experiences, and my philosophy. So let's talk about your ideas. I'm here to listen and create a trusting work environment. So the issue is, did the 2 candidates, cover what was asked in their 1-hour meeting where they were supposed to have like the little council meeting? That's our issue. Did they cover it? And with that, we have to decide, what did they have a rubric piece to it? And did they actually fulfill to answer what the people wanted? Because they did say, we want your philosophy, your vision, initiatives, and community involvement plan. That's what they wanted. One provided it more ish. The other one is one who is that transformational leader that wanted their views on it. So that's kind of the issue. Did they fully provide?
Okay. Well, did they? I mean, did team one decide which one of the two they would hire based on the information?
We did. I was going to see if anybody wanted to unmute.
Yeah, I mean, we did kind of voice our opinions and stuff. I was in agreement that Kate was the candidate I would have picked if I had not, if that's all the information that I had. Kate was the candidate I would have gone with.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what agreed. And the why behind that is because she did voice her philosophy and her personal experiences. She voiced that they had already interviewed her and she was getting the feedback from what was the expectation for them.
Okay, did the case say that Port Valley was a strong school? Was it performing well?
A proven record of well, sorry, I was in the wrong place.
I didn't remember that it talked about the
I don't
school.
think it said
Maybe
that.
it did.
No, it just pretty much went into the hiring process and about the two candidates.
Okay, so here comes Kate, and she said, "You folks have a proven record, right?"
Marie said that.
Marie said that.
Mhm.
So Marie was the one she is a top down.
Right.
She says, you have this proven record. I intend to continue these high expectations, and then I will speak with you and collaborate after I decide what the best plan is. Although Marie gave all of the pieces they wanted, the philosophy, the vision, she gave it all, but she also kept it in a top-down format.
Mhm.
Kate didn't give it all. She said, we've already talked about this. She said, I want your ideas. So she starts collaborating with the group right away. They're a little hesitant, but then they do voice concerns and it does become more of a collaborative interview.
Okay, did either one of them in the case talk about political and cultural stuff? About the community needs?
No, neither one of them covered
About
that.
all right, so, and it was not really detailed about either one of them's total vision for the school, right?
It wasn't provided
No.
here.
But
So,
all of you would pick Kate because she was a transformational leader. All right, so here's my question. Is there a place for Marie? Is there a school for Marie?
Yes, somewhere.
Mhm.
Where?
Somewhere.
That's a good answer, Natalie. I appreciate that. Where would Marie, where would she be appreciated? I mean, y'all kind of made this point, and I think you did it intentionally. I don't know that you did. You said we will, or she said, but you made it a point to bring this up. We will collaborate after I decide what we will do.
Mhm.
I decide what we will do.
Mhm.
Now, I want you to tell me, Team One, is there a place for that kind of leadership?
I would say in a low performing school, like maybe that's close to state takeover where they don't have many options left and they have to be told to do certain things.
Well, and two, there are always instances at a school where, yes, faculty input is good, but there are some situations that the administrator needs to make that decision. And this is how we're going to, I have this knowledge, we're going to make this happen this way. And, you know, he has to be the top down. Other issues, you know, they support that collaborative effort and stuff. So to me, it's an issue basis.
All right. Did it impact anybody that it was pointed out that Marie was Ivy League educated? Would that make a difference for anybody,
Not me.
positively
was
or
just that.
negatively?
I think she was just selling herself there.
Yeah.
The only concern is they didn't have an equal interview. Like they did not, and there's follow-up comments there that the book recommends, but they should have had a rubric that they stuck to, because that's two totally different interviews that they just presented. Marie actually did follow what they wanted more so, and we talked about that in our group. They did follow it more. And Kate went a little rogue. She wanted to have that collaborative piece in there, which they liked, and that's ultimately who this system went with. But I don't feel they had an equal interview process.
All right. So with that in mind, they didn't have a rubric, so that's not good. With that in mind, does it concern you that you would hire a person who essentially went totally off course and said, all right, I want your input? I mean, she kind of took charge of the interview, didn't she? So you have, you know, one of the things that Dale and I both talk about is this importance of presence, that you know, that you can command the room. So we know that Marie commanded the room. Is that more important than this? That Kate came in and just totally blew up everything. You know, I mean, it's because you went with Kate, so something about Kate attracted you.
I think it was that collaborative piece that we all agreed on in our group, that even though she went rogue, we know in the future she's going to want to collaborate to solve problems, which, you know, after that first class, we want to work for that transformational leader. And that is what she is. So even though she went rogue, we like the collaboration piece.
Okay. Dale, would you hire the transformational person?
No.
Y'all think that was a setup question? Why wouldn't you hire the transformational person?
I don't get a sense that she has a clear plan. She's just, you know, hope is not a plan. You need a clear vision of what you're going to do. You can collaborate down the road, but I don't want somebody coming in and asking me what I want done. Tell me what you're going to do. Lay out the test scores and tell me where they're strong and where they're weak. What are we going to do to fix those kinds of things? That's what I'm looking for. You know, not somebody that is just going to come in and be a sounding board of what I said. So, you know, whatever you want, that's what I am. I get the sense with Kate is I'll be whatever you want me to be. I just want the job. Folks like that don't last because as we talked about last week, I mean, once you start giving in, once you start, what do you want? There's a line out your door. You won't have time to cuss the cat because you're dealing with people coming in wanting stuff all the time. When you establish that, that you just give what people whatever they want whenever they want it. They'll want it all the time. And just as soon as you have to say no to somebody, oh my Lord, you are now the devil. So I would want somebody who was a little more planned and prepared, and could speak to the strengths and the weaknesses of the school. Myself, that's what I would be looking for. Now, I used to sit on one of my stops, one of my jobs. I was on was basically the committee. There was three of us, a 3-member panel that hired all the principals in that district. And so I have sat in that seat and made those decisions. And this person would intrigue me, but not enough that I would give them a job. I'll just, you know, when I've got to make the decision, when I got to pull the trigger, I need somebody that I feel's got a plan more than I'll do whatever you want me to down the road. We'll just get together and sing out the same songbook all the time. That's just hope.
So all of you can kind of tell that Dale and I are old school, and it doesn't necessarily mean that in this case or any others that one pair is correct and one's not. I will tell you that line of we will collaborate after I decide what we will do bothers me too. I think I think she got a little bit too confident in herself there. And I think that was a bad mistake. And if anything would have cost her the job with me, that would have been the line that did it. But I always want us to remember, and you're going to be in roles to be on a committee, or you're going to be the hiring manager. All of you will, and those are the things. Teachers are human, and principals are human, and superintendents are human, and they will like this personable person that wants to say, well, let me talk. Let's just talk. And I will tell you, in my interviews for principals, of course, every one of them knew up front this was what was going to happen. We were just going to talk. And so I would have been in trouble to start with Dale, because I didn't have a list of questions and a rubric. I was doing the old gut thing that we talked about, making gut decisions. So I would have been in trouble, and I know that. So that's why I'm saying that you're not wrong in team one to say transformational leader, but I always, what we're trying to do is get you to think here, because remember the third question is, what's the ramification? And the ramification of hiring Kate is there's going to be a time where there's going to have to be we're going to collaborate, but we're going to have to do it my way. And then there's going to be a mutiny.
Yes.
What happened to you? You're getting kind of full of yourself, aren't you? And I think that could come into play. So good job.
I want to say this to conclude and make sure I insult everybody equally tonight. Sometimes what teachers want isn't what's best for schools. Because sometimes what teachers want is what they perceive as best for them. Steve and I were in a meeting this afternoon, and we heard a decision that was coming down from administration, and we heard two different perspectives. The administrative perspective was, this will be bad for our students. The teacher perspective was, this will be more work on me. We heard that this very afternoon.
Yep.
This very afternoon, we heard, I don't want to do that because it'll be more work for me. Doesn't matter that it's good, bad, or indifferent for the student. Your job, again, is to be a champion for students and families and parents and the clients that you serve. If you can do that and be transformational leaders, inspire and motivate their faculties, and I hope that you can do that. But in the end, we need to be mindful that teachers sometimes have their own agendas, and that may not be the best people making the pick. That's just my perspective. Thank you.
We did hear that today. Dale and I talked about that as I was driving home and he was driving to his place. We were just sitting there saying, I ain't believing what I just heard.
Really?
But-
Yeah, you talking about the same issue from two perspectives. It was like, it couldn't have been further apart.
Mhm.
And nobody, and the teacher unfortunately didn't think a thing about what the ramifications would be for the students or the backlash or any of that. Oh no, after she just heard this impassioned plea from the administrative, that this is going to be bad for our students, it was like, I don't care about that. It's going to be more work for me. And but his lead in was, I have concerns, but we'll make this work. We'll do the right thing for our students. No, she wasn't having any of that. This is more work for me. I don't want to do this. So how successful do we think that's going to be if the folks who have to implement it are already mad about, oh, you're making me work now? That's the nature of the business, folks. I'll just tell you.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, I want it noted that the person we're talking about does not work with MELS or EDLS or
Right.
EDCI.
Couldn't work for me.
Yeah, not a part of the team of graduate faculty. So I just
No,
want you
could
to
not work for me.
Okay, let's go to team 2. Michelle, you gonna lead that one?
I think Stephanie and Valine are going to take this one.
Okay.
Ready, I'm gonna share my screen. Good evening, everybody.
Good
Hello.
evening.
Alrighty. Oh. Alrighty, can you see my screen?
Yes.
You can.
Alrighty,
Chapter 2,
Okay.
Talent.
sorry. So we are going to be talking now about case 2. And Dr. Laws and Dr. Lamb, I just want to make sure, are we doing like case 1 for that group, case 2, and then case 3, and then come back to us when we get to
Yes.
6? Okay, because we had a little summary at the end, a little game that we were going to play. So I wanted to know, so I didn't go all the way there.
Well, if you, I just want to make sure we got equal exposure here. And
Gotcha.
actually, case 14 is, I've got to get to tonight because I love that case. So that's team 3. So
That's fine.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we can share the link for the game and people can play it outside.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna talk about case 2. Just before I jump into it, I just want you to think about being at work and you are doing your best to fulfill all the requirements that are needed. Then you have multiple type of leadership going on at your job. You have leadership that makes it feels like you're just being drained and everything is just being pulled out of you. And then you have another type leadership style where you feel like this person is pushing you and keeping you energized and making you hungry to want to be successful as a teacher. Think about how these 2 leadership styles make you feel as a person. And when you are in that position as a leader, how you make others feel, whether you're one or the other. So we call these 2 leadership styles multipliers and diminishers. Multiplies, as it says, multiplies, it makes more, while the other cause drain, cause people want to quit, don't want to work, or people just get laid back because nobody's pushing them to do more. So that's what this case study is about. It's going to be a little bit interactive, so I'm going to have you guys jump in between because there are going to be some questions. There's some parts of it I'm going to skip because of time. All right, so I'm not taking up too much time. Here goes. Please listen closely because there will be questions in between.
Chapter 2, Talent Multipliers and Diminishers.
All righty.
Just a quick thought. What do you think multiplies or diminishes the talent, your talent at your school? Just quickly, give me a waterfall in the chat or unmute and speak. Think about your school. What multiplies, what diminishes your talent? Think about what you bring to the school and how it is being played out. Anybody can respond. Not everybody at the same time. Awesome.
Micromanagement diminishes talents, I think, at schools.
True.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you say that again, Shantae?
Yes, I said micromanagement
Okay.
diminishes talents. Encouragement can multiply it.
True. And Jessica says collaboration multiplies. So anything that makes you feel like you are not growing will diminish your talent. Anything that makes you improve will multiply. So very good.
Weston Square School District Superintendent Jason Thomas was pleased with the final selection and appointment of Loretta Long and Karen Trent as the new principals of Springfield School and the Bell Avenue School, respectively. Both Loretta and Karen had strong records of achievement in their previous positions. Loretta had been the longtime director of a major curriculum improvement program in another state. Karen had served as assistant principal in a neighboring school district. Both appeared to be knowledgeable about current trends in education, and both exuded significant skills necessary for their success. In addition, the Springfield School and the Bell Avenue School were quite similar in many respects. They both enjoyed similar student success on standardized tests, faculty motivation and involvement in school activities were flourishing, and parent participation in school decision-making was extensive.
So I'm going to skip this part. This was an interactive piece that we had. Basically, I was going to have you track the two schools, Springfield and Bell Avenue, and then compare it to what you are facing. Because as we go as leaders and we're trying to grow at our craft, we're comparing these two schools to see how they create that change, and then to see how we can also create that change when we go into that leadership position. So Springfield had these successes where students, their EAG scores were awesome, faculty was motivated, and they had good parent involvement. Hint, hint, guys, it says good parent involvement. Notice it did not say active parent involvement, and you're gonna see why I said that.
Upon completion of their first year performance as principals, Superintendent Thomas reviewed longitudinal data for both schools and observed results that were not similar at all. Under Loretta's leadership, for example, Springfield witnessed a student enrollment increase. Teachers are writing grants and publishing articles in professional journals. Learning environment surveys conducted by the superintendent's office were more positive than in previous years. Graduation rates were on the upswing, and community support for school initiatives was apparent to all observers. Bell Avenue School, however, seemed to experience higher than normal teacher turnover rates. There was an uptick in grievances against Karen and the administrative leadership team she put together immediately after her appointment as principal. Student enrollment suffered a mild decline. Teacher leadership was not evident. Graduation rates dipped slightly, and parent participation in school activities was missing. After a careful review of the data and a series of interviews and meetings with his own staff who served as resource agents for both schools, Superintendent Thomas noticed a difference in leadership styles between Loretta and Karen.
Listen closely to the differences that he observed. It's a part of our discussion.
Loretta supported faculty in their willingness to take risks and become creative in their teaching. "How can I help you do your job better?" was her usual greeting to teachers and staff. Karen was more careful in controlling and faculty efforts to assume leadership projects. For example, teachers who are eager to write grants, publish in journals, and present their curriculum innovations at local conferences were reminded that activities should be cleared with Karen so that she can give her own professional expertise in the direction to undertake.
All right. So one of the questions that came out was, how important is the first year principalship to all stakeholders? So these two ladies were first year principals, but they came in with different styles. One was more of a collaborative person, as we were just talking about with the first case, while the other was more of the go get it done, but I don't have time to stop to collaborate. So one of the things that we discovered while we were talking was having proactive decision making and strategic planning, acuteness of mental discernment, and soundness of judgment are critical when you're trying to build that first year. So as you're going in as a first year principal, some of you are already principals, but some of us who are new to it, building that, having that soundness going in will take the staff a long way. Do not drain the intelligence and capabilities out of your team. I'm actually at work right now, and I'm trying to make each evening trying to get caught up because there is so much. When you are the one that will always do it, you will tend to find that leaders will always call on you to do it. Sometimes that is awesome, that is good because you know that the work will get done, but after a while that person gets drained. So as a leader going in, you have to be very cautious of how much workload you are putting on one group. So not draining the intelligences and capabilities of your team will keep the smartest and the most capable members around. Most of our school systems now are struggling with a lot of good leaders leaving, not because they don't love the profession, but because of just being drained. They want to do the work, they're hungry to do the work, but it's as if they're the only ones doing it. So this is the thing that was being faced with these schools, where one person was given the work while the other one was collaborating. The one that collaborated found out that she had more growth. That is why at the end of the day, both of them were effective, not effective, but strong leaders. But at the end of the first year, she produced more because she collaborated, she shared the workload, and everybody felt like they were being equal, being rewarded for the work that they did. Ensure that the ideas are flowing. Another question that came up was, what factors might Superintendent Thomas use to evaluate both principals during and after their first year service as principal? He could look at those tongue-tied, and think about what is causing this. So think about the empire builder. These are the hoarders of resources. These are the people who are not sharing what is there so everybody can be a part of it. The tyrants, the autocratic, the micromanagers, and you said some of those at the start. And of course, the know-it-all, the people who always want to say, oh, I have the best scores. So as we go in as leaders, we have to be careful of these talent diminisheners because those will not build this school. Instead, our focus should be on the talent magnets that attract capable people, the liberators, the challengers, the debate makers, the ownership givers. That is what builds your school. That is what makes your school a stronger force. All right, only two more questions. How would we assess the leadership style of Loretta? So because Karen was a diminisher, she was a strong person. She wasn't afraid to say, do this, do that, but yet still she was not building her staff. And because of that, it caused her to be reluctant to be accepting that change. So in a nutshell, the aim is for us as leaders to gear towards talent, building the talents within our schools so we can use those talents to enhance the learning community. And also, but of course, we all know, increase those scores and get those graduation rates up. So that's case 2. Any ideas? I'm sorry, any ideas, any comments?
Love the way you presented it, and thank you for that. I thought that was really cool how you bounce back and forth. I just a couple of comments here. One of the things, let's go back and what was it that Karen said? No, I'm sorry, Loretta said to her faculty every day.
She provided them her feedback. The feedback that she provided was basically, in a nutshell, we're a team.
Yeah, what was her greeting to everybody every day?
How can I help you do your job better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, this is something that I tried to learn. I probably wasn't really good at it, but I thought it was a really cool thing. And it honestly, I learned it not through the school business, but through preparing a Sunday school lesson. And that is this. So a new pastor comes to a church and is trying to get to know his flock, if you will. And this new pastor said, this is what this is what I learned from this, that in order to meet the congregation, to meet his membership, to meet his flock, he asked two questions. What should I know about you? And what can I do to make your life better? Loretta did the second one every day with her faculty. And what I think that we can learn from this is when we go to a new setting and you're in a leadership role and you're trying to get to know the people with whom you're working, those are two wonderful questions. What should I know about you? And what can I do to make your job, your situation better? Now, there would be those who would try to pass the worst things in the world off on you, but most of them are going to take that as an opportunity to share about themselves and to enhance their opportunities and to do better in their jobs by their children in class. And here's the thing. So, and then I'm gonna let Dale tell you the right way, but every once in a while, I do this on a daily basis, but every once in a while I call Dale when I'm doing my walk on the Greenway in Gaston County. And so we got to talking one day. Dale remember this conversation. And it was like we were on the same train and we were talking about that the most important thing that school leaders can do is gauge the talent of the people that are working with them. Gauge the talent of the people who are working with them. If you look at this case, Karen did not do that very well. And Loretta, by what can I do to make your job easier or better, is honestly gauging the talent. That is her way of gauging the talent. So-and-so knows how to do this, so-and-so is going to take the lead on that. And our discussion, Dale and my discussion, was how do you select people from the faculty that you want to give opportunities for growth, to promote for the administrative role, to promote for a teacher leader role, to promote for whatever role it is you need. How do you gauge that talent? And if you can figure that out as a principal, then number one, you have empowered teachers, which is the most important of the things. But number two is you are creating a leadership pool at your school and in your district. And that was our
Between the two that we have you do this semester is all about that. The APTEL is about promoting people to be school-wide leaders in your building. Well, that's pretty easy, and everybody can agree that that's a pretty good idea. But how do you identify those people? Well, in the Mels program, we use Marzano. Classroom leaders should be the people that you promote to be your school leaders. Classroom leaders use Marzano's 9 high yield strategy, similarities and difference, cooperative learning. That's the whole notion. Is the principle to be successful, you have got to be a talent recognizer and developer. But that talent, it starts with who's our best teachers. If we want to create a culture of teaching and learning in our building, we need to promote our best teachers, not the ones that tell the best jokes or stand around the water cooler or, you know, always hanging around the office. Sparky Anderson. And he said it's all about talent, folks. You know, Sparky had just won the World Series with the Detroit Tigers. And he said, you know, you've got to be able to identify talent. That's your job as a coach, manager, whatever of a team that's trying to accomplish something, that's trying to win ball games or get test scores up. You got to get your best talent out there. Now, to finish up this, you know, soliloquy diatribe, this is a nicer book than what I used to, but I used to give these. I used to carry one of these every day, and I gave these to all my APs, and I had them put it in their pocket. And the reason why we carried a little pad is when teachers ask you for something, write it down and facilitate them. Ask them what you can do for them every day and write it down. If you can't remember it, you know, if you forget stuff, you sleep, you get old like me, write it down. And even in Dale's top 10 for your first faculty meeting, once you get your first administrative job, it's, you know, say something that you've seen good from teachers, but also have some wins, get people some stuff, facilitate some people, show that you are willing to facilitate folks. That will advance your career faster than anything. And so seriously, twice a year, I handed out these little notebooks, you know, and I would collect them up. What are you doing? If you carry that with you, it makes you remember every day, what can I do to facilitate these people? But again, it's all about identifying talent, folks. And the talent pool that you need to pull from is your best and strongest teacher. That's what we do. What do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in school? We teach kids. That's our core competence.
One question I had when we were discussing this book was, would we consider Loretta a servant leader in this case or no?
The whole notion here is that's what this is.
Gotcha.
That's why you carry this book. Let me serve you. What can I do for you? It's important enough that I'm going to write it down and I'm going to follow through. I'm going to be that servant leader. See, I don't have anything against transformational leadership. I think what translation, but I'm more interested in people being servant leaders.
Okay.
Because sometimes those transformational leaders are just too far out there for me. They're just too far for me. I'm too old school. But now that's full disclosure. I'm old school. They're just too far for me. But servant leaders, that's it for me. That's the pocket. That's the sweet spot right there. That's why you carry this book, because you intend to serve others. That's what the whole notion of it is.
Yeah, I think unless you get, you know, unless your leadership role is at a school that just has a dearth of talent, where you know, you're going to have to, you know, really figure out how to get things done. There's just not a pool of talent. This whole idea of because this case told us these schools were doing okay, and I think it was incumbent to do exactly what Dale was talking about. And I love the case. Of course, I enjoy all these case studies, and it was a great presentation. So everybody, before you cringe, I'm very cognizant of the time, and it doesn't shock any of you that we go off on tangents and we're not going to get everything done that we talked about tonight. So we'll just adjust. I'm pretty sure that we will not get to the third case for any of the groups. So we're going to get 2 of them done tonight. We'll figure it out from there. I'll go to my guru tomorrow morning when I'm walking the Greenway and say, what should I do now, Dale? But anyway, this is enjoyable to me. So let's do case number 3 for team number 3. Sarah, who's leading us on this?
So the first case will be Lisa. Lisa, do you need me to present, or you got that down?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so my portion of the case study is dealing with test practice. And I think we all know it better as teaching to the test. And you can go to the next slide. Yeah. The issue here, of course, is test practice and trying to convince teachers or educators that it's effective instruction. It has been dubbed teaching to the test. It has been controversial for years. I think even before I got into the field of education, I heard the controversy over teaching to the test. It was such a hot topic, such a hot button in education, and it still is. In the case study that we went over, teachers questioned whether it would discourage higher level thinking, and some were concerned that it couldn't be worked into their child's curriculum, that their school day was already full, and that it would require additional time that teachers don't have. So that was the issue. And while I was reading this, I became curious about my own school, my own site. So I sent out a poll. It was a 1-question poll I sent out 23. 18 people responded. That was amazing to me.
That is amazing. Good job.
Yeah, that was amazing. And as you can see, an overwhelming amount of people said no. Educators said no. They do not consider test practice as an effective form of instruction. And there were 2 members of our staff who said yes. So that's where we get the 88.9% saying no, and the 11% saying yes. Okay, and what would you do about it? If I was an administrator in this position and I wanted to, if I felt that it was effective instruction and I wanted to convince my staff that it was effective instruction, I would conduct the research and on the data and the findings of test practice. I think the case study did mention that it's data supporting the fact that it is effective instruction. So I think it would be really important to find that data and to present that data to all stakeholders. Work in a collaborative fashion with them on the decision-making processes, and involve teachers and administrators on the implementation planning. Ramifications. In the little bubbles here are some of the reasons or some of the voices that teachers have offered on test practice. And well, as you can see, the one says students may lose higher level thinking skills, concern for low achieving students and the ability to get them acclimated to the testing format. Test practice will be hard to integrate into the curriculum. Some said that teachers will lose the ability to be creative. And I can't see that top one, but it's test practice assumes or presumes that students have mastered prerequisite skills. So that's some of the ramifications that they offered for test practice.
All right. So this is that's ramifications for sure. So today I have a student doing his dissertation on the impact of high stakes testing on being college and career ready. And it's a fascinating study, and I've enjoyed. He's still in his chapter 2, but we've been going back and forth. So my question on this, Lisa, is that you were the presenter here, but we'll throw it out to the whole group. You said you gave us 5 ramifications, I believe. All 5 of those were pretty negative. Are there positive ramifications for testing? I mean, if there's nothing positive about test preparation and doing well on the test, then why are we still playing this game?
I know I feel like there's too much testing, but I think some testing does have a place to let us see how kids are doing across the board comparatively. How is South Carolina doing versus North Carolina versus the West Coast and things like that. Just from personal experience, my brother has 4 kids, and they're one of their twins are 9, and the boy had some difficulties this past year with other boys in the class. He all of his kids have done 2 years of kindergarten. Just their oldest child is a boy, and just maturity wise, and the school that they attend in North Carolina did testing with all the kids, and the 9-year-old boy, because it's a boy and a girl twins, they both did really well, and so he is skipping the 3rd grade and going on into the 4th grade, because academically he could achieve all of that, and the testing really helped to identify where were his strengths, and it helped them to look at what his needs were and how could they better meet his needs. And his twin sister is staying in 3rd grade, even though she is academically able to go into 4th grade. But so I do think there is a place for testing, but I do also think that we do an enormous amount of testing.
I think the issue becomes not so much testing itself, but where we sit and practice test taking strategies. That's where the problem arises. Where we sit and teach kids, instead of teaching them math, we work with them how to take a math test. Eliminate possibilities, guess, do all those kinds of things. I think that's the real issue that we all know. I know y'all know these concepts. You've already had your methodology block, but do you remember the concept regression to the mean? Do you remember that concept? That if you simply teach kids how to take the tests better, that eventually those gains will come back down. They'll regress back to the mean. Always remember, test scores are a function of 2 things, skill and luck. Skill has 2 components, content and process. Process is how to take the test. Content is knowing more math or English or whatever. So the thing that you've got to remember as an administrator is, are your teachers teaching more math? Doesn't matter how many times we test them, as long as we're teaching them more math rather than teaching them how to take the math test. That's what's generally referred to as teaching to the test. Is we teach them more test taking strategies rather than teaching them more content. Therein lies your problem. That's why testing gets such a bad name, is people just simply do test prep all the time. Well, you need to, and it goes back to the old axiom: if you want to fatten up a hog, you feed him, you don't weigh him all the time. Content, more content, less process. But teachers get focused on process, teaching test taking skills rather than teaching the actual content. And of course, I know the other side of that, the luck side. So when we give a kid an end of grade test or an end of course test, and then 2 days later, we let them retake the test if they're within 3 or 4 or 5 points of the cutoff, we're just hoping for luck there, that they'll be better guessers this time around. We've not given them additional instruction, have we? No, we're just hoping they'll get lucky. Now, why is it? Here's the $64 question for the evening. Why is it that those kids who scored like from 66 to 69 or 65 to 69, we retest them and let them try to be lucky? Why is it we can't count their test scores if they do hit that 70 threshold? Why can't we count those in our passing rate for the test? Anybody know? This is very important if you're going to be a school administrator. The reason why we can't count those who scored from 66 to 69 or 65 to 69, we gave them the chance to be lucky, they guessed a couple more right this time around. The reason why we can't count them in our overall passing percentages is that we did not give the ones that scored 77 to 74 the opportunity to be unlucky. That's why we can't count those retests in our overall percentage. Luck has a part in test scores. Skill has to function. These are things you need to know. Skill is content and process. Do you work on content all the time, which you should, or do you simply work on testing, which is practicing skill and drill, doing worksheets, trying to get better at taking the test? That's what you've got to understand about this particular function. This is part of what you've got to understand about assessment.
I have a question if that has changed. Do you know, like maybe this year, because we retested several kids this year and I was told that it did count towards our proficiency. It has not changed?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No, not unless you give the other ones a chance to be unlucky. You didn't retest any of those that just scored barely over the threshold, did you?
No.
Then you can't count the ones that under on the retest either. Now you might get somebody might be doing some of that fuzzy math, but no, it's always been that way. That you can't count those on the retest. Now you can move them on because you now have adjudicated proficiency, but you can't count them in your statisticals.
Okay.
So
Oh, well, and can I also say something about test prep?
yeah.
As a language arts teacher, when you're teaching content, I'm just going to give something easy for everybody to understand, like figurative language, and you're teaching figurative language and you're beating a dead horse with it, and you've taught it and taught it and taught it and you've taught it and taught it and taught it. It looks different when it's on the EOG and the questions asked differently. So I see value in teaching them what the question is asking.
One
and
time.
how it, okay.
That's the deal. You should
Well,
teach them the process one time, but
Okay.
not every day.
I do agree. It needs to be a little bit.
Yeah, one time, and that's what the data bears out. It's just like SAT prep. You should have a kid take the PSAT, get their score back, take a test prep, take the SAT one time. But the notion that every time they take it again, they'll get 100 more points is not true. Test prep works one time. After that, the effectiveness diminishes. And the problem is while you were doing that, you weren't teaching content. And that's when the regression of the mean slips up behind you and steals your heart. Because time is not infinite, it's finite. If I'm teaching test prep all the time, I don't have time to teach content. So these are things you have to know about assessment if you're going to lead a school in terms of what kind of prep are your teachers doing. You can't have them working on worksheets and just training to take the test all day every day. You don't get a lot of content that way. And yeah, test prep is good one time. Then after that, no.
Dr. Lamb, I agree with you 100% with that, because the students aren't growing because they're gaining knowledge, but they're growing because they could pass a test that next year they struggle with. My only thing as a future principal or administrator is with the structure of the curriculum, how do I filter this in so I can sell this product with efficiency? Because this is what I need to see for growth, because growth is not just about the number on the paper, but we need the true growth where this student can step out into society and really matriculate, really show what they have learned, not get stuck when they go out. How do I, as that administrator with the structure of the given curriculum, filter this in to make it work with the time frame and all of that we have working?
Well, you know, what you're really asking me is, how do you answer the critics who say that some test score is not a mark of what a kid really knows? But that's how we keep score in our business. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
That's how we keep score. Now we're trying to prepare future ready students. For those of you who don't know what that is, as a result of 21st century skills, we're trying to prepare a future ready student, and we have some other measures. But in the end, it boils down to, this is the game we're playing, this is how the score is kept, and this is what matters. You know, it's just like the first night of 601 for our new ones, especially the masters ones that are not the postmasters folks. The first night, you know, I do before the night before the first class, I do a town hall with them, and I tell them, if they're those people who don't think that test scores matter, get out now. We'll give you your money back. Test scores matter. That this is how the game is played. You got to make a good number go up or a bad number go down, or you have to go home. Well, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We can't continue to employ you. And that's your job as a school administrator. Now, we're going to keep an eye toward that future ready. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things that we work with in our last block with our students, is how do we get them to future ready, which is more than a test score. And that's what we're doing with 21st century skills. But you can't discount test scores. And you can't have people on your faculty that yell and scream, these test scores don't matter. Well, you know, yes, they do. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep score, and we wouldn't publish a state report card that says how you're doing on your scores. You got to remember that. Your job is to make a good number go up or a bad number go down.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my dissertation student, then we're going to go on to the next case. My dissertation student, I was reading his chapter 2, and he had this section on problem-based learning, PBL. And I said, where did this come from? This doesn't tie to high stakes testing and CCR. And he said, well, it ties to CCR. And I said, but it doesn't it doesn't answer the high stakes testing. And he said, well, there's a lot of data that shows that PBL leads to higher test scores and performance on high stakes testing. I said, well, I'm glad that it does, but you didn't say that anywhere in chapter 2. So you better find some studies that show it. So I think this goes back, Valine, to what you're talking about. If we can show over and over and over again that this content that we're trying and these strategies that we're trying to get across lead to better performance, then we won't need this test taking skills over and over and over and over again, that we indeed can create skills for students to be able to read questions and answer them, processing what the question is asking. And so that's where I went back. So unfortunately, that student's got to do some more digging in his dissertation, so he didn't hang up really happy. But that's what we were getting. It's the very thing you're asking, is if I'm a school administrator, how do I convince my teachers that we can really talk about content and strategies and not do test taking skills? And I think that's where we've got to get. So that was an excellent point. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are ready for case 5, going back to team 1.
That's me. So let me share my screen. Okay. So this is about the the good communication being essential. And this principal, Joe Wilson, he held a faculty meeting, and he asked the teachers if they had any faculty concerns. That was on his agenda. And after a few moments, there was a voice that spoke up, and it was one of their teachers who is normally quiet and very soft-spoken. And her comment was, "With all due respect, I have to say that I'm fed up with all the notices giving us more and more responsibilities, and especially paperwork to do." Well, apparently it started a chain of events where other people made comments and stuff too. And he wasn't expecting this. He did not realize that this was coming, or the way that the faculty felt. And so he called a special meeting with teachers who expressed their concerns. And his focus was on improving communications with them. And he went home and he thought about it, and he was a little upset with himself for not realizing this was going with his faculty, but he was open to what can I do to communicate better with them. And so he held a meeting the next day, and it just all you get is the beginning of the meeting. The person who spoke out said, "I just burst out hoping that you would listen and help us." And the principal felt confident that was the opening to good communication. That was where they could start from. So the concern, that he was asking for from the meeting, what are your faculty concerns? He just kept giving more paperwork for them to do, more responsibility, more record keeping. And it was more of communication and so this is going on. What can I do what can we do to make this better?
Okay, and I think his case got into the intercom thing too, wasn't it?
Yes, it did, about the secretary calling in to classrooms too often, making announcements for students and stuff, delivering messages basically.
Yeah, that never happens in schools anymore. Right?
Never. So it was interesting. I think just looking at it from outside and knowing I've had a different principal in the past. He's been my principal for 5 years now. He has a very different style from the principal I had beforehand. The principal that I currently have formed a leadership team. He has elected representatives on each team for each grade level. And even for the administrative team, I'm the teacher leader for the administrative section of our faculty. And one of the things he lets us know we're having a leadership team meeting. Ask your people, what are their concerns? What are their what do they need to communicate to us? Do they have any celebrations? Do we need to come into any classrooms where maybe they're having a little bit extra problems that we need to be aware of and stuff? So while he's having this meeting with this small group of faculty, how we obviously don't see where this goes from here, but where, how does this spread out? How do these concerns get addressed faculty wide, more than just small group faculty?
All right. So team 2, what would Loretta have done about this?
I think Loretta in this case would be more of the taking that individual approach instead of how should I say it? Because of her servant leadership abilities, she would make it more an intimate conversations instead of a general conversation for each individual teacher. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, exactly. You're saying it perfect. So what did Dale give his assistant principal? He gave him a pad to write down. And Loretta said, what can I do to make your life better or your job better? And so this principal stands up, and of course we all can smile and say, boy, you talk about stupid, allowing a faculty meeting to go to teacher concerns first. You will not get anything else covered. So that was a bonehead move. But if you go beyond that, it should never have gotten to this point where there was that kind or that level of concern about communication or interruptions or anything else. If the principal was doing the idea that we talked about with servant leadership or with asking teachers on a regular basis, individually, what can I do to make your life better? And if we're talking about gauging leadership among people, and this is an important thing for each of you, because every one of you is just incredibly gifted. It is important that you have the presence, the self-confidence, the willingness to share things that whoever you're working with that's in a decision-making position, that you can share things that can enhance the growth of the school or the district. And that's where this communication thing in my mind fell apart is, this poor principal went home distraught with almost like, I was clueless on that. Well, you haven't got an excuse to be clueless on that, because they're talking about it when they have an opportunity among each other. And if you have that kind of relationship where you can ask that question, what can I do to make your situation better? And I know you're not going to have time every day. Shoot, you're going to be someplace else on a lot of these days, and you're putting out a ton of fires every day, but you can do it at least with enough regularity that you will know that there is an undercurrent of concern on certain things that are going on in the school. And I think this principal blew that. And I think, to me, it's, even if you're talking in terms of your school improvement team or your leadership team, if you're going to let that be driven with concerns, you are not going to fix what needs to be fixed at school. It is the mission of our school to enhance student performance. And it is the mission of our school to give the tools and the wherewithal to everybody that's working there to do their job better. And we don't need to get into gripe sessions, but we do. And I agree that the gripes need to be heard, but you can do it in another way where it's not a team effort to gripe, rather it's an individual conversation. That's my opinion. Dale, what I miss on this?
Nothing. One of the lessons to learn here is how to conduct a faculty meeting. Steve's covered the other piece. You should have a business session up front and have a time limit on it. Try to handle as many things as you can without actually, send emails, send materials, those kinds of things. Try to stay on your time in your faculty meeting, but always do your business first before you get to the open floor and start asking things like this, because then you get nothing done. But you should take time. I generally try to do 15 minutes from the floor concerns kind of thing. And even though you go around and you're trying to be a servant leader, you take your pad, there's still some things you need to give folks an opportunity on a regular basis as a group to voice anything that they have, but don't do it first. And make sure that you know what it is. You've already talked with people and you're planning and prepared for it. Don't do like him and just get caught flat-footed. I mean, he got blindsided, but that's his own fault. You should know what's coming. But that would be my two takeaways as well. Thank you.
But wouldn't PLCs and department meetings and all those subgroups, wouldn't that be a good place for some of these concerns to be spoken of? Because it's a smaller, more intimate session instead of the general stuff.
And so I know you folks are all expert in PLCs and the 4. But, you know, one of the PowerPoints that we use with our folks are again, with our babies, our first time graduate students, is we use one by DeFore on his charge session. That basically that's what it's all about, is we use it as how to use PLCs as a communication tool and as a feedback loop. That is correct. That's a good one. Belen. Very good.
All right, case 6.
Michelle and I are going to tackle this one, but Valine, I hope you still shared the video with them, but just for time's sake, I think I'm going to summarize it really fast, but I don't want your work to go unseen because it's really awesome. And I do like your interactive stuff that you guys have all made. So I'm going to quickly summarize a betrayal of trust, ? So we got Mr. Moore, who's a homeroom teacher. He's starting to take advantage of 14-year-old Vicky Fletcher because she's lost her father, and she's kind of relaying these issues she's having. He's kind of getting really inappropriate by preying on those situations. He has a really good reputation, and that's going to come back later. So Vicky's mom gets involved. She goes to a board meeting, calls out the superintendent. A bunch of other angry moms are there, and parents are there saying, what are y'all doing? What's going on? Well, the principal, come to find out, doesn't even have a policy, because he was like, well, the district can have one, so I don't have a policy, and none of this has been reported. So the two biggest issues that are here is, one, they're saying that the teacher has such a great reputation that they don't believe it, because also on top of that, the student has a history of lying. So we end the case with, we have these issues. What are we going to do about it? Because there's no policy, and that's a major issue, is that there's no policy.
So the decisions, as Sarah said, we've got to decide, the district needs to move forward with a policy on how to handle these situations. The other decisions that need to be made that have come up are also now, since the principal he has a relationship with this particular teacher, so he questioned him and let it go. Do you keep the principal at the school? And then you have this trust issue, although it's alleged, do you keep the teacher? So one of the things I found interesting in reading all of this, and if you're not aware of it, you probably should be, is that Miami-Dade School District was sued and by a student who was in a similar situation that alleged that a teacher had an inappropriate relationship. And we talked last week about the term pass the trash, and that's what Miami-Dade School District was caught doing. This teacher was alleged for almost 20 years to have had inappropriate relationships, and they kept transferring him around schools. And it was in 2019 that she won a $6 million civil lawsuit against Miami-Dade because they just kept moving the teacher around. He's facing criminal charges, but is currently not in jail. So these are policies and things that happen in our districts that, and Dr. Laws and Dr. Lamb, I'm not quite sure, how you do handle this at this level. I know that coming from CMS, there were policies in place. This principal, as a state mandated reporter that we all are supposed to be, failed and fell back on, well, I didn't know. I know that if I'm an employee of the state, even of South Carolina, if there's an inkling of a possibility of sexual abuse by a staff member, I am legally required to report it. The potential ramifications, and I'm going to cite the case that's happening right now with Myers Park High School and their former principal, is that there's a lawsuit against him and several Myers Park High School employees around a similar situation where there was an incident on campus that was not addressed. And those people are now all facing civil lawsuits. That principal that was at Myers Park High School has been moved into a different position within the district. He was not let go. And then the other ramifications are that you have a loss of trust in the school, the district, by the community, which can have long-term problems moving forward.
All right, so one of the things in here that y'all picked up on quickly, and you will pick up even more when Dale does the 603 with policy and finance and those things. Dale is quick to point out, these are the things that can get you fired, and he'll talk about lawsuits and everything else that come, and usually, I'm the one that says, well, it's not always that cut and dry that you're going to lose your house and things, or that you're going to get fired, but there are protocols that we need to follow. Make no mistake, folks. Number one, there's not a district that doesn't have protocol on inappropriate behavior by teachers and how you report it. And that's what Team 2 has done a good job of pointing out. The second thing is, so you can't use that there's not a policy for it. None of you will be able to. They may be able to write it in this case, but none of you will have that as an option, and be thankful for that. The thing here is that, so what if this girl, I can't remember her name, or if it was even the case, but what if this girl really is a habitual liar? And
It doesn't matter.
what if ultimately we find out that so I conducted as the principal of the school, and she says I was just angry and it never happened. What if that happens?
I think that's when the investigation comes into play and following the protocols. A lot of times as leaders, we tend to let our emotions cloud our judgment, and then we forget the policies and the steps that we need to take. And when we do that, and when we skip steps and we skip protocols, that's when it comes back and harm us later.
Okay. So what is the first step when you have been told that this girl has a concern? What is the first step?
The first step is you report it. First of all, you
Yay!
report it.
To who?
You report it to the police. That's
To the police.
Call the law.
You call that's the first
All
thing
right,
you
so
do.
everybody, excellent. So this is the easiest case you have.
Exactly.
This is the easiest case you have. We will hope that the law determines that this science teacher did absolutely nothing wrong. We will hope that that's the case, but that is not your role as the principal to determine. Never, ever, ever.
Dr. Laws, I don't know, this is a question too for Dr. Lamb, because it's coming up in his case. I'm getting started on some of those assignments that are upcoming. And I kept seeing reported to the Title IX representative.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's your second call.
Okay.
That's your second call. Your first call is always call the law.
Okay, because
you are not qualified to do an investigation of a sexual nature of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a state manual that tells you this. It has all these rules in it. I started with my babies last night.
Mm-hmm.
We're a little ahead of y'all, but we last night. And so I introduced that manual to them last night, and I'll introduce it to y'all when you get with me. But the state of North Carolina has a disciplinary data manual. Now, the local has the code of conduct that says how much punishment you get for these things, but the state sets the parameters. Your first call is to the police, period. Second call, Title IX or whoever at your central office. Always. You don't ever, even if they said he just said something, I don't care. If it's sexual in nature, it's a no. You do not get involved. You call the police, you call Title IX, you step back. Just like that, just like that time in high school chemistry, when Henry McGinnis turned the Bunsen burner on and then started looking for his torch. After about 30 seconds, as I stepped back, I said, here, use mine. And it removed Henry's eyebrows and bangs and burned a big hole in the ceiling in the chem lab. But that's what you're trying to avoid. You call the law and then you step back. Otherwise, you'll get your eyebrows and bangs singed off. It will not go well for you. You step back.
So this Title IX representative, does it Is it usually a superintendent or depending on the
The
district?
district tells you who it is. It's
Okay.
usually it's usually the associate superintendent.
Okay.
For us,
But it
it is
is the person responsible. And the manual says that's who you call with these things. That person is designated and known in your school district to the administrative team.
for us, it's the
Not a
student
secret.
services representative.
Yeah.
Our student services person is the representative.
Could be.
Do y'all remember about 10 years, somebody mentioned Miami-Dade, and about 10 years ago in Buncombe County, the teacher who was taking photos of in the boys' bathroom underneath the
Mhm.
stall, and the principal who investigated and, you know, kind of blew it off, kind of like this principal blew it off and lost, like, she and the assistant principal both lost their jobs. I mean,
I will tell
Wow.
you a dozen stories, much more that you may not be able to sleep at night that I've had to deal with myself. The one at Myers Park, that's Bush League stuff to the one at Butler years ago. That's the difference between slingshot and a cannon. Wait till you hear the one from Butler. But the common
And let me
among
tell you
all of
something,
these-
folks, you will before you finish, because he's got it on his mind now.
But I'm telling you, the first mistake you make is when you think, what am I going to do? Who am I going to talk? Don't think. Pick up the phone. Call the police. Call the law now. I'm going to tell you, just like when I was an outside linebacker, and the coach said to me, "Don't use your head to think. That's not what we're paying you for. You're hurting the team if you're thinking. I need for you to put your head in the tight end's ribs when he comes across the middle. That's what your head's best for, a battering ram. Don't think. Sometimes it does you no good. It's harmful to think in this business."
Dr. Lamb, I know you're speaking on behalf of the administrator, but at the teacher level, who makes the call?
The teacher.
The teacher still? Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's a really good question.
Yeah.
So, because there are a lot of teachers that would say, "I'm going to go tell the principal," and then it's out of my hands. If you know it, and we talked about this, I believe, with the case we did out of the principal book. But if you know it, you got to handle it with law.
You got to tell it.
Then go tell the principal you call law enforcement.
Yeah. Now,
But-
please remember that 20 years ago, when Steve and I were in the business, it was that was a little bit different. What Valine just said, and I think Sarah alluded to this in her preamble when she started this rant that I'm on now. We have these people that are designated as persons responsible. It used to be that it was only like the principal and the assistant principal and the guidance counselor and the social worker. That changed with Title IX a few years back. Now, if you get the check at that school, you are now a person responsible. So yes, you have to be that person who makes that call. And that was a good catch, by the way, Sarah and Michelle. Everybody now that works there is a responsible person. That is a good catch. Excellent.
All right. Next up is case 7.
All right, so case 7, Annie put this together for us, but I'm going to go ahead and present it. So let me do that. Maybe. Yeah. So this case is about leadership principles as instructional leaders. And it starts out the outgoing principal. He had been a beloved principal 15 years and, all his scores were great. Well, people around the community, which was really good, got wind of how great this school was. So they started sending their students to this new school. It wasn't really new. He'd been there for 15 years. But the problem was all of those students that were coming in had really low reading scores. So it was dropping the scores of the school. And so he decided the longstanding principal decided it was time for him to leave because he felt like a new leadership was required to help with these scores. He didn't feel like he was the man for the job. So the case talked about what they needed in a new principal, and they had spoken with a new principal. But what we had talked about what Annie had showed us we could do would be research strategies to incorporate into the classroom that could make reading scores grow over time, use data to support curriculum decisions, speak to district leaders and other lower performing schools to see what's been effective for them, host community engagement activities that target reading strategies, and I can't see that other part, that can be implemented easily within the home, and create and utilize a behavior matrix, because that was the second big issue that had come up with the new principal. Now we have some behavior issues, and some of that's just because teachers, even though they were all 10 years and above, so they knew what they were doing, they weren't sure how to engage students at lower level of understanding, and it became a discipline issue because they couldn't keep their attention or whatever it was. So the ramifications of not doing some of those things, if you don't allow enough time to see if the new curriculum or strategies are effective, then you're just jumping from one new initiative to another. And this is across the board. It doesn't even have to be in education, because I've seen it over and over again. If you do something for a quarter and then you're like, oh my gosh, that didn't work, and you change it, you never know what really worked, because then after 6 months and something finally hit, you don't know for sure which thing worked. Not having teachers buy in, since most of the staff are veterans. So that was the problem. You had a veteran staff, and if you didn't get them on board, then it was going to be hard to turn the ship around however you needed to. And then not being consistent with behavior consequences and rewards. So if you don't have a good behavior matrix plan, then you're not going to have a good consistency with that. And that was it.
All right, so this one we start with Sarah Seller's description of the principal being a geriatric leader, right?
I have to apologize about that later, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's as you can see, it still hurts.
I resemble that.
Yeah. Here's a guy who's been there for 15 years. We can get into that dialogue too, of the principal being at the same school that long, but that really doesn't pertain to what we're going to do in this class. And I mean 601, 603. But the principal's been there a long time, and he recognized that things were getting worse, and it was, somewhat attributable to change demographics, but it could be other things too, including that this principal, just had lost kind of feel and touch of what we need to do to continue to improve. It could be attributable to a lot of things. And so we get the new leader, Frank, and he comes in and says, we're gonna fix the reading piece and math. And this was Frank's insistence. Now we know that student performance, school report card, if you will, is gonna be front and center. This is what we get judged on. Dale brings this up a lot. I bring this up a lot. This is how we're judged. And so they have their protocol for this. And then it said, I believe it said, after 4 months, teachers said, well, we're having a problem with this, and we need some strategies for managing classroom. So my question is, did Frank set the right priorities to start with?
So the first thing he did was he said, we're going to get new books, new curriculum. We're going to do all these things to help these students. And he did pay attention to where they were, like they looked at scores and things, but I don't think he really paid attention to that. Like where are they at and where do we need to get them to be? It's like he wanted to keep the bar really high and not meet them where they were and help them up. That was kind of my takeaway as I read that case.
I love the way you worded it, but I'm not sure that I heard it correctly. So here's what I heard you say, Sarah. That Frank looked at the scores and he wanted to keep the bar going, and he wanted to provide for the students what they needed to perform academically. Is that what you said? And here's what I think was missing. And this is what Dale and I talk about it. We need instructional leadership, and we in schools, and this is where you folks have a tremendous advantage. I say this over and over and over again. But where this one went awry was he wanted to provide what students needed to perform better. He did not seek to provide what teachers needed to do their job better, which is classroom management and support. And if the teachers can't teach, then the students are not going to learn. And so I thought personally that Frank missed it, that he simply came in and looked at performance data and made the judgment, here's what we're going to do. And I don't think he took into account what teachers needed to do their job better. And that's going to be a challenge for you. It was a challenge for me and Dale when we were in the business. Again, if we can give the teachers the tools, then they'll get the job done and done better than we could ever dream. The mistake here is to me is that Frank said, oh, this publishing company can help us get our reading scores up. Oh, this program can help us get these reading scores up. Whatever it is. And don't we do that as districts? We buy into this salesperson's promise that this program is going to save our children. And I think we've really missed out on the opportunity to say, all right, teachers, what do you need? What can we do? And I think it may have taken them 4 months to say, we might be doing the wrong thing here, worrying about a publisher's suggestion on reading and math. And why don't we get some control in the classroom and in the school? That's my take on this. Maybe I'm wrong. Dale, what's your take?
Where's Annie? I see Annie down in Rutherford County down there at the bottom. I'm reminded of when I lived all them years in Rutherford County, especially in Forest City, where I was a member over at the public golf course over in Forest City. And so I played in the dogfight every Saturday morning. And there was a fellow named John Boland. And John was the early adopter of our group. He was the first person who switched from a persimmon-headed driver to a metal-headed driver. And somebody asked John one day, how you hitting that new driver, John? He said, oh, I can hit this new driver 20 yards further into the woods than I could my old driver. So sometimes the new direction, a new thing, if you're going the wrong direction, only makes it worse. All this new stuff and forgetting what they, getting teachers what they needed and some discipline, some order in the building. Yeah, he had a new driver. That's new curriculum, but it only gets you further off the path sometime. And so your job is to set, as a school administrator, to set the conditions where teachers can excel. You get them what they need. You have some program, whether it's PBIS or RCM or assertive discipline or whatever. But you got to have some order in schools to give teachers the opportunity. Now, don't be one of those idiots that think if you just put uniforms on kids that they'll act better. No, that's just, kids behaving badly dress similarly. And just because kids behave better don't mean they'll learn more either, by the way. It sets the conditions where teachers can teach, and then kids can learn more. But if you want kids to learn more, you have to teach them more. And so Steve's exactly right. The notion here is you got to facilitate the teachers. That was, you know, he went for the quick fix and bought the new driver. And he, you know, again, like John Bolton, he just hit it 20 yards further in the woods and no one. That's makes things worse. And so that's the notion here is you've got to set the conditions for teachers to be successful and facilitate them to be that way. A program, a curriculum, a computer won't fix your problem, nor will uniforms, by the way. Have I insulted everybody equally tonight? I hope so.
No, well, Dale and I are not program people. I think you probably picked up on that. All right, so let's go with team one. I know we got 13 minutes, so we will get case 8 done tonight, and then we'll pick up next week, and we're going to get done what we can get done together. All right, last one for the night.
Okay, I'll make this as painless as possible. So I had case study number 8. If I want this move. Okay, so summary, we have a school who it's a little less desirable. There's not a lot of applicants who are actually ready to, you know, wait at the door to be hired here. Got kids who are a little rambunctious. But James Carmichael, who is the PE teacher, has some great success with the children. When he comes in the room, the kids automatically do what they're supposed to do. So I guess, I don't know if this was the same principal from the last case study, but he left, he retired. And so Carmichael was interviewed and he received the principalship at Webster School. So the issue here is they told this man, like, okay, listen, you're the man for the job. However, you have 2 challenges facing you already. So the reading scores are very bad, very, very low. And also that means that teachers with whom you were once friends, you will now have to supervise. But he immediately jumped in and said, you know what? Okay, so he started talking to people, learning who was in his building. He talked to the reading coach. I think that was her title. And she had some suggestions on what they could do. And she made it clear that he would have to attend, it was some type of seminar or workshop or something like that. And she said that she wouldn't do it if he didn't go. And then he did talk to the staff to let them know, like, hey, this is the new situation. What else did he say? But they were very supportive and appreciative of the fact that he did come and talk to them. And so we talked about the issue. So working from a couple of places. So one issue, being a new principal with, I'm assuming, little experience because he's coming straight from the classroom. He does have excellent rapport with the students and the staff. So that would be a positive. But he would be challenged by getting these scores up and then also transitioning from that friend of to supervisor of these employees. Also, one negative ramification would be focusing on one subject area more than others. The book, talked about how other subject areas tend to fall by the wayside because teachers start to focus in on the highest area of need. So if the principal is pushing, reading, then the other 3 subjects kind of fall off. So you could have parents who are also upset with this unbalanced curriculum. Opportunities for field studies or field trips could be minimized. And it could also be hard to find a balance between a rigorous reading curriculum in other areas of education and content areas.
All right, so we've got a lot of stuff with this one of which is being promoted from within. And a lot of you are familiar with people who have, maybe all of you are familiar with people who've been promoted from within in a school. And it is a challenging thing. I think that it's hard to transition from being a peer to a person in authority, and it's hard for the individual now in authority, and it's hard for the peers, and so that would be issue number one. But let's look at the curricular thing. First question: can a PE teacher be an effective instructional leader? I mean, we're all about reading and math, right? I mean, we are all about reading and math. Your world is all about reading and math. Can a PE teacher be an effective instructional leader?
So I know I'm not a part of this, but I'm going to chime in. As someone who I said I have to apologize later about how much being an admin must have aged you, I got to do walkthroughs with my admin today. I believe that you and Dr. Lamb are both 25 years old. You just have aged that way. So during my walkthroughs, I observed a BTP teacher, and she was the first PE teacher I've ever seen give me a lesson plan, and it was a working document. She had reflections. She was changing it. So yes, they can be. They just have to work at it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Great point.
Yep. Dale, what'd you teach?
Me?
Yeah.
Science. Math and chemistry and physics.
After you blew up the kid with the Bunsen burner?
Yeah, well, that's on him.
Okay.
I was just an
All right.
accomplice.
So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that was intriguing to me, because let's face it, folks, and I thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. I have actually worked with principals who were physical education and instructional leaders. Tremendous. A fellow named Wayne Shepherd in Wilkes County, incredible instructional leader, incredible leader. Even coached football too, believe it or not. But he was a tremendous instructional leader. I think that where this individual really struggled was, this is what can get you, is if you stand in front of your faculty, or if you stand in front of your community and say, here's our problem and here's what we're going to do, and somebody says, well, what makes you think that's our problem? Or how do you know what to do? And your answer is, well, Ms. Jones told me. That's not a really good answer. So there has to be this immersion. And I think that's what this case was getting at. That this person, whatever curricular area they come from, has to understand that you can be a leader without being a content specialist, but you better know enough of why you're doing what you're doing to be able to defend it without having to look over to somebody else to come to your rescue. And that's where this one was a challenge, I think, for this individual who was coming up out of, he clearly was an effective PE teacher, but and he was just kind of told, don't stay friends with everybody. You're going to have a different role now, and you've got to fix these subject areas. And you've also got to be able to look at other faculty and say, we're going to fix reading and math, but I know what you do is vitally important because I know what I did is vitally important. It is part of what we're trying to do to educate the whole student. if we can, and so he's got a lot of learning to do. And I think that it is incumbent upon all of us, again, he needs to surround himself with people that can help him get to the promised land, meaning help the school get to the promised land. But he's got to have that confidence that he knows, here's what we're going to do and here's why we're going to do it. All right, it is 7:56, Dale. What did I miss on that one?
Before you move on, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can share with this leader because I was a PE teacher too.
Okay.
So and I agree, it takes you just being hungry to learn and wanting to be able to change and accept that growth, and just trying to go out there and more and get more experience, and then from that you can grow into the position. Anybody can shine in any position as long as they're hungry for it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When I was principal at Oak Hill, I had a really good first grade teacher, really good. So good, in fact, DPI stole her from me during the year. About September, October, they all made her an offer she couldn't refuse. And she went to work for Department of Public Instruction and left me. And she was the best teacher I had. And boy, you talking about being on a hot seat as a principal. You lose your best first grade teacher that we had a local magnet. We were doing a reduced class size and people were bringing their kids to go to school there to be part of that group that she was the head of and be in her room. And all of a sudden she's gone. What are you going to do now, hero? Well, the PE teacher, she wore track suits every day, was polished, professional, looked like $1 million. Denise Bruce, great lady, younger teacher, best lesson planner. I mean, she was the total package. I don't know. I just, not a drinker, but I must have been drunk one day. So I don't know why. I went to the gym and said, would you like to teach first grade? And she said, I've always thought I might want to do that. I believe I will. And she came in the next day with the little jumpers on like the first grade teachers. And she was just the best first grade teacher ever. And after the year, she said, I'm going to go back to PE now. I had a great time. But the point of that story is this. The reason why I picked her, I had data, I had evidence. It wasn't somebody else's opinion. I knew what a great teacher she was, a great practitioner, lesson planner, she was the total package. And if you have that, it's transferable skills, folks. It's not about the content, it's about the process. Remember, it's about content and process. She had the process. Content was immaterial. Surely an adult can know first grade stuff. And so, but again, you got to have a better idea than somebody told me I ought to try that, or I'm just guessing or stabbing. Parents will need more than that. But yes, PE teacher can be an instructional leader. Yes, they can do that. Absolutely. But to Steve's point, you got to have some data. You got to have something to back you up other than just saying, I just made a guess. Or somebody told me, and my presentation to the parents is she's one of the best teachers I've ever seen anywhere, any kind. She'll do a great job for these kids. I believe that, or I wouldn't have picked her. Now, if she turned out to have been bad, it would have probably roasted me, but I knew she wasn't going to be bad because I knew she was a great practitioner. It's just that simple. Thank you for that.
So we went full circle tonight because we began tonight with our ability as leaders to gauge the talent of those with whom we work. And this is Dale's final story, which he didn't know he was going to do at the end of this, about finding the PE teacher that was the first grade teacher, and because she was a great teacher. Absolutely. And she had all those talents. That is what we do as leaders. That is what you are going to specialize in because you have the tools to know what great instruction and great leadership is. So it is 8 o'clock. We will pick up on the cases next week. Go ahead and prepare them all. I don't know when we'll get through at 8 o'clock next week. We'll get as many done as we can, and we will then pick up on the Saturday and get through these case studies. We're in good shape on the Maxwell thing. And for time, if you have any questions on the evidence, let me know. Text me, call me, email me. I hope you have a wonderful week. Boy, it's going to be beautiful weather. Hope you can enjoy a little bit of it with all that you got on your plate. Blessings, everybody, and good night.
Stephanie, it's good to see you tonight. Hope you're well.
Yes, Stephanie.
Thank you. I am. I feel real good.
Great.
Thank you.
That's great.
Hey, can
The one that
y'all
created
stay
those
on for
nice
just a second? I
videos.
want to, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Baleen.
No, I was just telling them that you're the one that created those animated videos.
Oh,
That's-
thank you.
Yeah,
Stephanie did that?
good. Super
Wow.
creative.
That was, yeah. That was
Baleen
cool.
put it in a Ed puzzle. I was emailing y'all. I asked my testing coordinator a question. Can I stay on and
Sure.
and
Yeah.
okay.
Good night.
So I asked him I'm the testing coordinator at my school. So I texted him and I said, is this in writing? And he said it was. And it's in the, let me send you the link. That it is, the retests do count.
The retests are going to count for the state.
Yes.
I'm not aware that change had been made or an exception had been made.
Here,
Is
I'll
that
show
part of the COVID exception?
Let me share my screen.
Yeah, let me see that.
And I'll show it
that
to
has
you.
not been, traditionally, that has not been done.
See, I was in the midst of emailing y'all.
Okay.
Let me see.
Tell your testing coordinator, they need to have a better life if they're responding to your email at 8
At
o'clock.
night.
Well,
Yeah.
we're texting each other. He's that kind of guy. I asked him if he knew you. Okay, so here's the document. He told me to Google, because it is not real clear what the name of the document is. He said, Google NC end of year test business rules. That's what business rules, it says it right there. So it is number, and he told me this is the kind of guy he is. He's a nerdy nerd. 2D right here. It says student, here, I'll make it bigger.
Is this, Stephanie, is this Wilson?
Ross Rumball.
Okay.
Do y'all know him?
I do not know Ross.
He didn't know Dale. I didn't ask him if he knew you.
I know the name, but I don't.
I'll let you read it.
Okay, students who score below achievement level 3, right? That, yeah, they use the assessment or on the extend in the current school year and obtain a higher score while enrolling. They still got to go to summer. Oh yeah. I'm talking about just the retest, immediate retest. I'm not talking about the summer.
Well, I mean, this was immediate. This was like,
yeah,
we turned around and retested.
While enrolled in a summer program that is completed and test scores are submitted before if they go to summer school.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm talking about not going to summer school.
Well,
Take
now,
the
what,
test.
I mean, honestly, and not to be argumentative, we were able 11 years ago to count the second test.
Yeah,
as valid.
Yeah, but
okay,
but not.
I thought you meant that they didn't, like any of those kids that retested didn't count. So okay,
If they retest right away and all you did was give them a chance to be lucky, those don't count in your calculation. If you put them in a summer program and then the summer program that is completed before the published end of the accountability year, they will replace the higher score with the lower score with the higher score. That is correct. But they've had a summer program.
Okay.
If you're just doing the retest, a day later,
your proficiency is still the same.
Your percentage is going to stay the same. Now those kids get to move on without going to summer school, but your percentage stays the same for your proficiency level for your school or school district. those don't get to count in that calculation. Now, if they
Okay.
go to summer school or you have a remediation piece in there that lasts doesn't matter how long, then yeah, those get to count as long as it's before the end of the accountability year.
Okay, well, I thought you were saying that none of the retests counted, so
No,
I just,
no,
I
no, no.
was,
What I'm talking about is
trying to
you
figure
take
it
it
out.
one day and the next day they'll let you take it again.
okay, I got you.
All you're doing then is see if they can guess a few more because there's been no treatment in between the pre and the post.
Mhm.
There
You know, we
has
used
be
to
a
do that.
treatment for them
Didn't
to
we
get
used to do
count.
that?
Yeah,
what?
that's what I was saying years ago.
We did used to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. But that was stopped.
Mm-hmm.
That piece was stopped. And the reason why they got to count was because there wasn't any summer when they stopped summer school. But when summer school came back, that went out. The rule that went out again. If you'll
Okay.
remember, we did away with summer school. When we did away with summer school, but they said, well, we'll let them count. But now that there is a treatment, you know, you have to, the only way that they can count is if they go through that treatment. Then if you get them in and retest them before the end of the accountability year, then you can count them. The whole notion here is, again, you can't count, you can't count theirs if you didn't give the other kids a chance to be unlucky. And so when we did away with summer school, it changed things. But now that summer school is back and you've got these summer programs and you've got what we would call a treatment in between, pre-test, that's the first time they take it, a treatment, post-test. If you have a treatment in between, you can count the higher score. But if you don't have a treatment in between, you can't count the higher score.
Okay.
That's the way that
I
works.
agree.
It's a
Okay.
statistical concept that somebody that, you know, that finally DPI called on to and said, oh, wait a minute, we can't do that. And so, but there was
yeah.
a time when they did count, but now there has to be a treatment like the summer program for them to count. That is correct. You can't just take the test back-to-back days now and count.
Just so you know, my black eye is not related to my surgery. I don't think. Can you see my black eye?
You're, well, I see it now, but you couldn't tell it from the.
I could see
Well,
it.
I didn't know if you were looking at it and
Yeah.
or not saying anything, but yeah, it's related to a cabinet that
Oh,
Wow.
forehead collided with. So,
oh,
and then I woke up the next morning with a black eye.
oh, Lord.
Okay.
Do
But thank
you
you for staying
root-
on with me because I was trying, honey, you can fix anything you want. Sorry. Thank you for staying on with me because I was really I was trying to figure out if I thought you were saying just blanket, it doesn't count. So
No.
I was trying to
If there's a
see if
treatment
it
in
did.
between, if there's an alternative program or we're going to get into that one in our first case study about alternative programs and grades and all those kinds of things. So if there is a treatment,
Okay.
you know, then it can count, but it can't count if it's just back-to-back days because all you're depending on then is just luck. And you know, we have to be equitable. If we give one group of kids a chance to be lucky, then we have to give another group a chance to be unlucky. We're not going to do that.
Well, we still don't give everybody a chance to retake the test.
Then that, you know, that's a problem too.
We only give the ones who are right
Borderline,
there.
That's what I mean. It has to be within 4 points. You know, it has to be inside of one standard deviation, which is 5 points on standardized testing. It has to be inside of one standard deviation. Otherwise, they won't let them do it. Again, if there's no treatment in between, all you're dependent on is luck. You were a better guesser this time than you were last time. You don't know any more than you did yesterday. You've had no treatment. You've had no additional instruction. And so those are the kind of testing quirks and anomalies that can really trip you up as a school administrator. You got to know all that stuff. And so testing coordinator is excellent preparation for school administration because you really learn all the ins and outs because test scores will jump up and bite you.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you will have done the worst job on earth.
Exactly.
When you switch to something else.
It'll be a better
The
job.
worst job on earth is bus handling.
Okay, you win that one, Stephanie. That's a good one.
That's the worst job. I can do testing all day. I like spreadsheets.
Yeah. You don't get as many complaints either.
No.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Y'all have a good evening.
See y'all.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.